attend conferences and sometimes present at them. I've contributed to educational developments. I was formerly on the Fellowships Committee and the Publications Committee. Oh, and I've written the Seda special.
Well, at the moment I am a member of Seda. In the past I've served on a number of Seda committees, but currently I'm a member, and I'm going through the process of getting 3 of our new programmes recognised by Seda.
I'm involved in Seda as an individual member, and I'm also currently co-chair of the Conferencing and Events Committee.
Currently I'm the convener of the new Seda Special Interest Group on Technology Enhanced Practice. Historically I was the founding chair of Seda and have been on Exec and Publications Committee, and quite a few roles over the years, good heavens, over the decades.
I'm involved in Seda because my institution is a member, and when I first came into an educational development role, it just seemed like the obvious and most useful, one of the most useful organisations for me in terms of linking with other people who had similar aims and visions and were doing similar things to me.
Well, I've always been involved in Seda conferences, so I've always come to present when I can, or just to be amongst fellow staff developers. But I now work also with the Seda Enterprise and Services Committee, and I'm vice chair of that. So I'm interested in the promotion of Seda and the development of the Seda product, if you like.
To be honest, at arm's length mostly. Subscribe to the JISC mail list, so I see a lot of the conversations that go on there. But primarily, I put out a call on that list about 6 months ago for some feedback from anybody who'd started or launched new e-coms channels to communicate with their teaching staff or students, or indeed anybody else in the university. And I got a really good set of responses from that, ranging from somebody who said, how come LSE is lucky enough to have a communications person in their centre? Others who had to do all that website and publishing work alongside their day job, some who weren't really doing much at all but wanted to, and that sort of thing. So I met with 2 or 3 people as a result of that, and that's helped me enormously to do the thinking behind a teaching blog that we've launched this term, and fine-tune a little bit our communications with students as well.
I am currently the co-chair of the Conference and Events Committee, but I am also vice-chair now for the Seda Executive.
I'm involved in Seda through attendance at conferences. I've attended in the past the summer school, and I'm a recipient of correspondence, and which promotes networking opportunities and such like.
Okay, several years ago I went to a Higher Education Academy conference, and I happened to be sitting next to a lady who was involved in Seda, and she encouraged me to join because she said it was a fantastic network.
Hello, I'm Sally Bradley, and I'm based at Sheffield Hallam University, and my role is Professional Recognition Advisor. And I've been involved in Seda since 2005 on the committee and also as the institutional representative.
Seda has been tremendously important to me in my life. I undertook my first publication with Seda, so the very first publication I did was a Seda paper. I then went on to write many other things, and my feeling is that Seda gave me a tremendous start in my working life. It had huge influence on my thinking. The networks that I made through Seda were enormously influential in all the things I subsequently went on to do with the ILT, which became the Higher Education Academy eventually, and my work as a senior manager, most recently at Leeds Metropolitan University.
That's very hard to say, very off the cuff. But it's a network of very supportive individuals who have an openness, if you like, to new ideas, but are committed, above all, I guess, to the development of the individuals within that unit, as well within the network, as well as work within universities.
Seda means to me an awful lot of things. I suppose I heard somebody else say this earlier, and actually this is what I think it is. It's about identity. It's about a collection of people that do that share the values that I have and who do a job that's very similar to mine. And because in my normal day-to-day work that can feel quite an isolated position, it's coming together and knowing about people, I mean, not just in the conference, although that's the kind of most visible face of Seda, I think, for most people, but it's also all the publications, it's the support. I've mentioned the courses we're getting accredited. It's having a validation for what we do and a way of trying to reinforce that that I'm not alone in the work that I'm doing. So somehow Seda encapsulates all of those things. So it's individual. I don't think I'm explaining it very well, but it's a combination of a very clear structure, clear different areas of activity that I can relate to and at different times I can call on. But it's also something a bit more nebulous, and it's a community, I suppose.
Seda means that I've got an instant community of practice that I can tap into. The kind of personal touch with Seda is very important to me. It is about people. It's not so much about systems and processes. And I think being able to engage with a group of like-minded but also critically challenging people is really important for ongoing development and for my role.
It's my professional association. It's my professional community. In the early days, when there was only half or maybe one educational developer in a university, Seda was the place where I could talk about this stuff, this strange, mysterious job we were doing. Now there are far more developers out there. It's still a place where we can share practice, exchange ideas, not just within the meetings, not just within the conference, but it's a network, it's a professional network, a professional community. It's incredibly important to me.
It's a very helpful network. I've had some very helpful exchanges of ideas. This is only my second conference I've managed to get to, but I'm on the Seda list, and some of the discussions that I've participated in and I keep an eye on are really, really helpful. So they help me, I suppose, calibrate what I'm doing and what's happening where I am with the rest of the sector.
I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I think it's quite difficult to pull an answer out to that question. But certainly today, in the conference, I've got a real feeling about how Seda and the Seda conference is very different from other conferences that I attend. I mean, I go to the HEA conference, for example, always very useful, very pedagogically based. But Seda, I feel that you're amongst people who are doing the same difficult things that we do day in, day out. And staff development is a difficult area. You really have to win hearts and minds, and that's difficult to do. And I think when we get together and we start talking about what we're doing, you can see that everyone's in the same situation, and it's very collegiate. You know, the conversations are very helpful. People are saying, I'm not able to do this, or I would like your advice, or I'd like your contribution to what I'm doing, and everybody contributes. And that's what I really felt today, and I thought, yes, that's what's unique about Seda for me.
I was a sociology lecturer in the 80s and the 90s, and without a PhD I was trying to build up my research, and my research was really into the students who I was teaching. I was really intrigued by the multicultural students I was working with, many of them coming into university as mature students, and I began researching their experiences. I felt a bit lonely doing this. I felt like I wasn't a real sociologist. I wasn't doing the kind of research that other people were doing. And I met somebody, James Wisdom, who was already involved in Seda then. He was the educational developer at the university that accredited my course, and he suggested I go along to a Seda conference and give a paper. I couldn't believe that anyone would be interested in the kind of work I was doing and the kind of low-key research I was involved in. And then I found Seda, and the conference was fantastic. I suddenly found all these people who were interested in the same things as me. I realised there was a word, educational developer, and it was people thinking about how you taught, when you had diverse students, how you encouraged people to change their practice. All the kinds of things I'd been thinking about were the kinds of things that people in Seda were thinking about. And I kind of felt like I'd found a home. It was a really emotional, interesting and inspiring conference. And I couldn't stop thinking about this organisation, and straight away I wanted to get more involved.
Seda for me, when I first became involved 5 years ago, provided me with a really good opportunity to talk about education and development with my colleagues, but learn from other people's experience, save having to reinvent things, but it means having a community that I can test ideas out with and get support from.
Seda's an organisation which provides opportunities to find out what other colleagues are doing in a context, I suppose, of a developmental critical friendship. The links I've made through Seda have been quite valuable in terms of bouncing ideas off people, learning what's happening elsewhere, and thinking about the interrelationships of ideas. There's a lot of complementary stuff going on out there, and there's a great deal of synergy that can be created through the networks that Seda offers.
Over the years, Seda has provided me with an opportunity to network with like-minded individuals, to invite them to my own college to give workshops, and they've all had a huge amount of support, especially in writing. They are colleges learning and teaching strategy, and in developing all kinds of other initiatives. So it's the networks, it's the professional people involved with it, and also the great resources that are provided. It's been very, very useful for me.
Seda has been integral to my whole professional development. When I joined the Educational Development Unit, and I was supported by a member of Seda, Professor Emma MacDonald, and who encouraged me to engage in Seda and undertake my fellowship, and I've now got my senior fellowship of Seda.
Seda's influence on me was because I found a very supportive learning community that enabled me to work through my own ideas in a very supportive environment. I published with Seda, I became chair of its publications committee, was involved with the executive for many years, and for a short period of time co-chaired Seda with Carol Baum. And the kinds of opportunities it gave me helped me realise that there was a world beyond subject disciplines. And by becoming an educational developer through Seda, I learned an awful lot about how universities work.
It's been immensely positive for me for almost 20 years. I think I first encountered Seda in 1995. So I've had a lot of involvement in getting Seda recognition for courses, and in all the other ways which I've said. So it's functioned really well as a supportive developmental network.
Again, huge impact, because it's legitimised what we're trying to do in educational development. Rather than just being a lone voice or a series of voices in a unit, with the publications and the various structures and so forth, Seda, it gives you a credibility that it would be hard to have working on your own, and that credibility comes in part from giving you access to a much wider community than you would otherwise meet.
Well, I've been involved with Seda probably for around 5 years now. I started getting involved in Seda when I was head of learning and teaching at my previous institution, and it was incredibly valuable in terms of giving me a support network as I was new into that role, new into an educational developer's role as well. Within that role, I set up a new Centre for Learning and Teaching, so it was great to have a group of colleagues who could kind of lead me through that. And since then, I've moved on in my roles. I've acted as Dean of Students, and of course now I'm Vice Principal of an institution. But I do still see myself as an educational developer and as someone who's interested in development of people, whether they be staff or students. So that's why Seda remains really important to me and influential.
It helps me calibrate what we're doing against other people. I've managed to, I think, support other colleagues with some of the learning we've had that they might be going through. I've gained from Seda ideas.
Well, we have a few Seda recognised professional development framework courses, and I run the Learning and Teaching and Practice course, which is our 3-day intensive course, compulsory course for postgraduate researchers who are going to teach, and that is accredited by Seda, and it's probably the one that most people choose to go on and do the assessment. And of course, since the PDF has been accredited against UKPSF, acronyms slipping out all over the place, that's even better, because now I can backdate to the my colleagues who have actually undertaken the assessment for our learning, teaching and practice, and evidence that they have achieved UKPSF at descriptor level 1.
When I first got involved with Seda, I was just moving into education and development from a nursing school, and so it gave me a network of people very early on that I probably wouldn't have been able to collect over this period of time. It gave me lots of people who were willing to share their experiences and support, an opportunity to share ideas with, but it's also helped me grow in that role, and it's made me reflect on many of my experiences that I've been doing over the period of time, and it's made me rethink perhaps some of the ways I work with other people. For the institution, it's definitely helped with me thinking about new ways to bring in initiatives and to raise the profile of teaching across the institution, and to do that in a different way.
Okay, in terms of my professional life, I found attending the Seda Summer School was inspirational. It gave me a great deal more confidence in my own practice. It provided me with some quite valuable and enriching networking opportunities, which in the intervening period have been sustained. I think that the bulletin is a very valuable thing to come through. It contains a lot of thought-provoking ideas in terms of what's happening around the sector. And it gives those are a good opportunity to share and to influence, and I'll often send those around to academic colleagues who I know are involved in particular developmental activities, and I think they find that quite valuable in terms of giving them some kind of theoretical framework in which to situate new developments and ideas.
It's given me a framework. It's given me scholars and professionals that I can link up with, and made my life I'm not going to say easier, but it's provided a much more structured and professional dimension to what I try to do on a day-to-day basis.
It has been profound. It has been a community. I have a resource that I can go back to, a shared, collaborative and collegial community. So in an educational development unit, you can be very isolated, but you know that there's a community to support you.
I think it's contributed to the higher profile of learning and teaching in higher education.
Many and multiple, but I think the key thing is to have raised the status of teaching and to put it on the agenda as a legitimate and important part of our professional role as academics.
I think Seda has been able to give a space to people to ask perhaps different questions to those that are being posed by policymakers, to perhaps challenge the difficulties that some policies have brought to the HE sector, but also to talk about solutions. It's easy for us sometimes to be a bit doom and gloom about what we're doing, but it's good to have a forum where we can actually say, right, pragmatically, how are we going to deal with this, and how are we going to safeguard what we think is important, which is a first-class learning and teaching experience for our students.
Within the profession of educational development, because I believe it is a profession, I hope it's not going to turn into a discipline, but I hope it's a profession. Within that, it's the professional base. It's where we have the conversations about what it means to be a developer. It's where we develop the standards. It's been phenomenally important in that respect.
Well, I mean, it's got to be the development of teaching, hasn't it? I mean, even today we're still talking about research activity and whether teachers are recognised for their expertise, the fact that funding now is mainly dependent upon the number of students, and that's dependent on the quality of the teaching, not the necessarily the quality of the research. Of course, that's important. And even in our discussion this morning, Professor Helen Higson was saying that 85% of the money that runs the university is coming from teaching. So Seda's legacy is in helping staff developers develop teaching.
I think that Seda has the values underpinning it, and that it's very much about people and about sharing and working together and supporting each other. I think it's a really good thing. It enables us to look outside of the policies and to think about how those policies may impact on all of us, but also how we might be able to influence others in relation to those policies and in relation to how we can support students.
What Seda has done is to give a lot more credibility to professional development in the universities as an important cofactor in excellence in teaching, promoting inspirational teaching, and helping to create a context in which it's okay to think about the quality and value of what you're doing, and to research that, and to share ideas about that, and to promote the conversations that need to take place about developing and moving forward as a profession.
I think we forget that Seda actually changed. We now have the UK professional standards and accreditation and recognition for teaching, but Seda was there at the beginning, and I think it's important to remember that they were there first.
Look forward to the 40th.
Keep on with the great work.
Yes, happy birthday, Seda. What I would say is hang on to your values. I think that they are incredibly important in terms of underpinning all that we do.
Happy birthday. Seda's still here, and that's not a trivial thing to say at all. Organisations come and go. Seda's adapted to changing times, and I hope to goodness it continues to adapt to changing times, because times are changing faster than ever. I think Seda may need to work more closely with other organisations in the educational development field. I think some of the boundaries between developers and teachers who innovate, we may need to start chipping away at those boundaries. I think Seda's got a lot of changes to make, but we're developers, for goodness sake. Change is what we do.
Happy birthday, and I really expect it to still be here in 20 years' time, doing good stuff.
Carry on, get stronger, stay focused.
Very happy birthday. Carry on the good work, and thanks for the help it's given me.
Happy birthday, Seda, and what I would say is keep providing opportunities for people to share things and to support each other.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Seda, and I hope the next 20 years are just as fruitful. Thank you.
Happy birthday.